Hello, everybody, and welcome to 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We got a little different look tonight. I'm hosting. My name is Candy, and I'm here from the South Florida Tribune. And I have two wonderful co-hosts here. I have Rick, Mr. Opinion Curdy. Hi, Rick.
Hey, Candy. How are you?
I'm good. And you?
I'm doing well.
And then I have Eric, Mr. Concrete Dump Cats. How are you,
Hello.
Eric?
Good. I'm quite well. Happy to be here.
We're happy to have you too, and we're happy to be talking baseball tonight. We are going to start off with, I think, your guys' favorite topic of the night. We are going to start off talking about the Angels missing the playoffs. We are talking about Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. They are the only 18 active players in Major League Baseball who have won an MVP and have never won a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, talk to me about the Angels missing the playoffs.
Well, it's just a shame. You got two of the best players in all of baseball. You have Ohtani setting pitching and hitting records. He's in the MVP discussion again. Trout, of course, is Mr. Consistent, best player we've seen in many, many years. And the Angels are just a terrible team. They just have no pitching. It all is in the hands of Artie Moreno, who's to blame for this huge, huge mess. We've always talked about owners, like the Pirates or even the Marlins, who, have owners that don't want to spend money. Unfortunately, the Angels have the opposite problem. They have an owner that loves to spend money, but he spends it in the most stupidest, most idiotic ways possible. The Pujols contract, yeah, he had some productive years, but he wasn't the same Albert Pujols with the Cardinals. But the Josh Hamilton deal, that was a complete fiasco mess. He still hasn't addressed any pitching, the bullpen. It's just a mess. And I'm happy to hear that Artie Moreno is thinking about selling the team. I hope he does, so they can get better ownership and drop this LA Angels of Anaheim nonsense. It's stupid. I remember when they were the California Angels. Just bring back the California Angels. Get an owner that has some common sense, that wants to spend money. And please, for the love of God, pitching, new Angels owner.
Eric, what are you thinking about the Angels?
It's just they used to be a solid playoff contending team with Mike Scioscia behind the helm, along with guys like Troy Gross, Vlad Sr., and David Eckenstein, Darren Erstad. They used to have a pretty good team, as well as John Lackey, who was the ace of that staff at one point, and also having guys like Scott Spezio and closer Francisco Rodriguez. But now, since Artie Moreno's come to town, he's turned what was Hollywood Jr. into the Kardashians. He has two MVP candidates. Mike Trout, he's 5-tool player. You don't see that too often. And he's had some very great years. Granted, injuries happen, but still one of the best in baseball. Then you have Shohei Ohtani, who can do it both ways. He's a great pitcher and a great hitter. You can use them both ways. The last guy we probably had to do that was Babe Ruth. But the fact of the matter remains, he neglected pitching. Again, what goes back to what Rick said was he had no he declined he just decided to load up on offense, but he didn't address pitching. In order to win this league, you got to throw the baseball. The Marlins have began to realize that when they first got Jose Fernandez, and now look at what they've invested in pitching with guys like Sandy Alcantara and other things like that. But man, Artie Moreno has turned a franchise. You call them the Angels, or right now they're right now the Angels of hell in hell right now.
Well, and let's not forget that Trout is signed through 2030, but now Shohei Ohtani actually becomes a free agent after next season. And he keeps saying that he wants to win. His top priority is winning. And let's face it, if the Angels aren't going to help him win, he's going to bolt.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Ohtani is this rare talent that I think of all people deserves to be in the postseason. He doesn't want to end up like another Don Mattingly who doesn't see the postseason until the guy's on his last legs. I think Ohtani, if you're smart here, regardless of whether the Marinos sell or not, or regardless of what owner, I've heard talks about a Japanese owner, which would be terrific culturally for Ohtani, someone he'd probably more than likely be comfortable with. And I think would personally be a good fit because then, he kind of understands what he's going through. But, the fact of the matter remains, it's going to take a while to build. Ohtani, maximize your prime, dog, and get out of Anaheim and if you really want to win, it's not going to be in Anaheim. You don't want to make the same mistake Trout has made where the prime of his career is getting swept under him for a team more dysfunctional than the Kardashians.
Wow, that's quite a statement there. I like it though. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk and let's switch gears into the wild card and the playoff implications, only because one of the teams that can kind of is still in it, mathematically has not been eliminated, had one of the big teams come to town this past weekend. So we're talking Milwaukee Brewers. Mm-hmm. There's still 2.5 games, and I want to say it's more than 2.5. It's going to be that half game isn't there because they can't tie with either the Phillies or the Padres because they'll lose the tiebreaker to both of them.
Yeah, because they lost the series to them.
Because they lost a series, and they changed that rule this year. So they've got to outright beat them. So they have. But this past weekend, they entertained the New York Yankees. And mm-hmm. Eric, I know that that's your team, but you live in Milwaukee.
I do.
So tell us a little bit about the series and how it went and how excited was it to have the Yankees in town?
Well, it had been ages since they were there. I believe they were last there. Oh, it's been a while. But, it was obviously it's a different feel when the Yankees come to town because when we see the Brewers tickets get absolutely juiced because the Yankees are in town. And I'd probably say that's everywhere, including the Chicago White Sox for that matter, whose tickets can be dirt cheap, where you could be a broke college student and probably get some decent seats there. Upper deck most likely, but still you get to see the game. But the fact is, it was obviously a great atmosphere. I got to take in both games Friday and Saturday, which unfortunately was a day or two before a Judge hit 58 and 59 home runs, which I'm still a little salty about. Because I actually texted a friend saying, of course it happens when I don't go. And we both laughed. But I'm okay with it, But obviously, it was a great series, I mean, obviously, Brandon Woodruff, when given the right support, the guy can pitch. He could be a Cy Young candidate if the Brewers give him some offense. We saw what Burns did without the offense. Now imagine what he'd do with some offense. Man, they might even go to the World Series. You never know. But great atmosphere. Obviously, it's a different feel when the Yankees are in town, and it's just overall, I probably argue that's with any stadium, Rick, including, obviously yours in California, and also, probably including in obviously I'm gonna guess I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna guess it's the same candy in Miami, because obviously Florida is basically a Manhattan South.
Yes, Miami's a hodgepodge of all kinds of them, but yes, anything 95 down.
Which the Yankees are actually coming next year to Miami.
Yes.
So yeah, it was obviously a great feel. I mean, I enjoyed the game despite the first 2 games not going my way, but I still had a good time.
Would you say there was the crowd more Brewers or more Yankees?
That's a hard one because, obviously I was in my section, but I'd probably say I'd say it was pretty balanced from what I gathered. Obviously the Brewers are still a playoff team, and they're still a competitive team. So obviously the crowd's going to be there for that. So obviously I'd say it's balanced. Obviously in New York you get some guys coming in Wisconsin. Obviously the great thing about Milwaukee is you actually find people who spent some time in New York or LA or Texas or things like that. And Milwaukee's a lot more cultural than people realize. Is because you find that's including where I grew up in Illinois. You find some people who spent some time in New York or wherever. But yeah, you find a fair amount of Yankee fans everywhere.
So one more question about the Brewer Yankees. How many other series have you gone to and seen the teams? Would you say there was more Yankees fans than, like, let's say you saw a Cubs series than Cubs fans, or you saw some other team game there?
I'd say if you go to the White Sox, these are the only series I've really caught. Obviously, the Cardinal fans are crazy. They with the Yankee game I went to, yeah, you found Yankee fans there, but Cardinal fans are just crazy loyal to their team. They love their Cardinals. But I'd probably say where it outnumbered them, I'd say the White Sox, because the White Sox have been absolutely fightless this year. Not last year, obviously was very entertaining thanks to the White Sox being competitive. But overall, I'd say if you want a real bang for your buck and you want an even series, though, you probably have to wait for the White Sox to be competitive, which it was a couple years ago when I went in 2021 when it was August and the White Sox hadn't clinched yet, and the Yankees obviously were there, and that was a 13-inning marathon thanks to Jose Abreu keeping me up till 3 a.m. yet again. It's happened to me before. It's not the first time he's done that, and to the point where I'm getting sledged into the ground by my White Sox loving friends.
So, Rick, talking about the Brewers and the wild card, because they are 2.5 games back, do you think they can overcome that and make the playoffs or not?
No, they just, they're a very good team. They just don't have enough firepower. Unfortunately, they're going to miss it. And for the Yankees, Judge is having a tremendous year. I've gone on here and rip Aaron Judge all the time. I love to have fun with it. He is having an historic year. He's the MVP. No offense to Ohtani. But, 59 home runs. He could win the Triple Crown, which is amazing. And I hope he does. And I'm rooting for him to win the Triple Crown, one of the rarest feats in all sports. And no, I'm not talking about horse racing. I'm talking about baseball with the Triple Crown. And I love to see it happen. But for the Brewers, they're a great team. Counsell's a great manager. If he wasn't there, they would probably, like the Marlins with Mattingly, probably not be a very good team. So he's a great manager. Mm-hmm. And I hope they lock him up for a long time. But unfortunately, they just don't have enough firepower, and the games are getting lesser and lesser for the Brewers to catch up.
I think I love Craig Counsell as a manager. I really do. Actually, if it makes us feel old here, we both remember him when he was a player.
Oh yeah, that crazy quirky batting stance, utility player. Yep.
Still was very consistent though. Still was a consistent 300 hitter.
Yeah.
And he's a Wisconsin boy, which makes it even better. And he still lives here too. And which but I think Craig's a good manager. No way the Brewers are going to let him go even if they don't go to the playoffs, because why would they? Because in the past few years that he had done what he had led them to the playoffs consecutively. No one had been able to do that because the Brewers have never been a consistent winning team, and Craig has turned them into a consistent winning team. Only thing difference is they just need another bopper to go with Willie Adames, Rowdy Tellez, and Hunter Renfroe when he's healthy. I know they tried to get they tried to get what's his name on the Giants. He's always Jock Peterson. He's always been a pain in the butt to the Brewers. He seems to be that Brewer killer per se, where no matter where he is. But they tried to get him. Giants were contend, not contend, kind of a middle of the road, and they backed out. So, but obviously the Brewers, I think if they get themselves another bat, and I think they have Garrett Mitchell, who I think is the man out in center field. I think he's going to be a very good player. But they just need another pop. Just need one more pop to go along with that lineup. And as long as that pitching stays healthy, the sky's the limit for them.
Yeah, I think they missed out at the trade deadline. I think they really needed to get a new bat. I remember back in the day when they had problems with pitching, and they brought in CC Sabathia for that run, and that was awesome. But I do believe that trading Hader and not getting a bat, which is what we really needed, and we miss Hader, although he might not be doing as well as he was before. He was a presence in the locker room that gelled people together.
100%. I loved Hader when he was there. I every time, even when he was warming up, I was like, all right, that's it, game over. That's it, game over. He's about to. And I remember seeing him. My favorite fondest memory of him was when he closed out the game against the Mets and the Brewers won the NL Central. It was a party to remember. It was also that team was so much fun. It's one of those teams that, was like, that didn't win a championship yet was probably the most fun people had watching it. And it was the same summer where the summer of Willie Walkie happened. Because every time he came up, it would be a clutch hit every time. And this guy still proved to be dangerous, because I was at the game where he broke Robin Yount's home run record for a shortstop, which obviously was very impressive to see. It was a 3-run shot too.
Yes. I remember the locker room from that series though, because I remember them showing Bob Uecker in the
80 plus years old and still partying.
Yeah,
I don't even know how he gets the energy.
He feeds off theirs.
That was a memory to be held. I mean, I think the Brewers still I think they got another year or two left with this team to compete, but they gotta find they need another big bat. They gotta preferably get a contact bat, because this home run or nothing thing's not working.
Who's their hitting coach?
Oh, they got a couple. They have a couple actually. They fired Andy Haynes in the offseason, which was smart because he wasn't getting it done. But he's only the new coach that they have now. He's only been there for he's only been there for a year, so you kind of have to give him a chance before you make a move. Ozzie Timmons and Connor Dawson, they have hitting coaches. Timmons came over from Tampa, so you gotta give it a chance. You can't just make your mind up of 1 year, because keep in mind Renfroe got hurt for a decent amount of the year. And now, obviously, Willie Adames missed a month of the year early. So you got to let it just gel, because prior to them getting hurt, the offense was actually a little bit better than what it was last year. So you really have to just let it gel. I mean, it's way too early to. And what they've done with Garrett Mitchell is, they're doing a fantastic job with him. So you got to let it gel. I think it'll come around. I think they're good coaches. I know Craig's not going to fire him, because Craig is smart and knows how long these things take, because he was a player a few times over, including having a World Series ring. But he actually 2 World Series rings. But he knows. I think it'll come around. I just think they need one more bopper in that lineup who can get on, make contact. At the very least, make contact, get runners in, not another home run hitter.
I think a lot of the game lately has been, let's hit the long ball. And I think they need to get away from that. I think they need to get back to bunting. And I think maybe with the shift.
What about stealing bases, runs, the fundamentals of baseball?
Stealing has started to come back. It has started to make a comeback. Like I always say, when things go away, things also have a way of coming back. And I think with the shift gone, you're going to see that complete hitter again, because instead of having the power bats like you do now, because guys will move over where you hit the ball most of the time, it's no longer possible. They're going to play you straight up, and if you hit it over the middle, it's more than likely going to be a hit. I mean, granted, a guy makes a great play on the ball, which happens, but I think you'll find the complete hitter again. You'll find multiple guys batting 300, 350 or 330 or whatever it is now. I mean, granted, are they going to change the way they measure players now? I don't think so, because obviously they look at obviously OPS is on the scoreboard now instead of batting average or whatever they put up there in the past. I think you're going to find the complete hitter again. I mean, stealing is starting to come back. I know bunting's working its way back, but you'll find the complete hitter again, especially with the shift gone, because if they're going to play you straight up on the dirt, why not go back over the middle? Pete Rose did that all the time, and he made a career out of it.
I agree.
I mean, say what you want about the guy. The guy could hit.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, of course. I do think we need to get back to some of the basics, and I understand analytics to a point, but going back to, the excitement of base running and actually running the bases smartly and using the steal. We miss that. We miss the only time you see bunting a lot of times now is when we're in extra innings and you put the man on second base. Like, that's the only time we were seeing the bunt these days just to get the guy over to third.
Even that's been slow to develop because guys are looking to just go the other way with it. But I think base running now is just horrendous. It's awful. The amount of outs the Rays run into, I'm shocked they're a playoff team. But the part of that is too. Most teams feel like they got to rebuild, and so they're going to just copy what the Astros did and whomever else to try and get back. But I think that type of strategy will be back too with the game because the shift is gone. Obviously you have to have it's completely gone. You'll find the strategy come back, and also I think base running is going to be prioritized again. I mean, and I think stealing is going to become a commonplace because I know the Yankees have used it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to see the days of Vince Coleman and the 75, 80, 90 stolen bases, not these 35 stolen bases a year and leading the league and these 315 batting averages that lead the league.
Or Ichiro. Bring back Ichiro, man. Bring back Ichiro.
I mean, what happened to the science of hitting like Gwynn and Boggs and Candy? I hate analytics. I'm not going to even accept. I hate it with a passion. It's a bunch of nerds who've never played the game with their little computers and looking up all these statistics and all that stuff. It makes me sick to my stomach because it's just like, nothing wrong, using some science, but when you base it wholly on science and you're taking out a pitcher like Scherzer, taken out during a perfect game. And this is Buck Showalter, who's so old school. That's why I'm really surprised that happened. But I'm just tired of it. I'm just tired of who cares about 500-foot home runs. You're seeing it all in sports. You're seeing it in football with touchdowns. You're seeing it in basketball with all these 50-point games now. It's just to me bad for the game. Bring a balance to it. And I just miss the fundamentals of baseball, the hit and run. The science of it is gone. And these guys are just all home run and strikeout. And I mean, there's no surprise why the batting average this year is like one of the lowest we've seen in decades. So it's just sad to see, and hopefully they'll bring it back.
In defense of Buck, though, I mean, Max Scherzer was coming off that injury. Granted, he was throwing a perfect game, but Max Scherzer was in defense of Buck. Max Scherzer was coming off an arm injury, which it could have very easily cost him the season. So there was some okayness to that because Max Scherzer has been known to be injury prone, despite being such a great pitcher. He can get hurt, and I think and so there's some defense of that, but also analytics cost the Rays a World Series when they pulled Snell.
Kevin Cash. I mean, I keep telling people that my mom, who knows nothing about baseball, was watching the game. And she said, why are they taking out that pitcher? He's doing great. And for her to notice that, and she's 81 years old, and you got a problem. And Kevin Cash, and Roberts, with all this analytics stuff, they just need to stop it. Roberts looking great right now. But we'll see how he does in the playoffs because he comes up a little short all the time. And I'm a Dodger fan, but he cost the Tampa Bay Rays a World Series. I'll say it again. He cost them a World Series. You don't take out your pitcher like that. Snell was terribly upset. I don't blame him. The Dodgers were not hitting him. He was on his game, and you don't take somebody out. Can you imagine Nolan Ryan being taken out on a pitch count, or Roger Clemens or someone? They would have gotten the manager would have been knocked out on the mound if you try to take Nolan Ryan away. So, I mean, just let them pitch. And enough with this science, enough with this analytic stuff. Just let them pitch. And to me, when the unwritten rule, you don't take anybody out during a perfect game, a no-hitter. It's like someone bunting to break up a no-hitter. There's some unwritten rules you just don't do. Just leave them there. I mean, you're seeing history, and pitch with your manage with your gut instead of all the science that's going on right now. It's ridiculous.
I mean, look at the Rays. I mean, I think that started to catch up to Tampa this year too.
Yeah.
I think granted they were just injury riddled for much of the year, but I really think it's starting to catch up with them, and with them taking the shift away. I'm interested and they also took originally they had a pitcher face one batter, meaning that would be their specialty to get him out. They took that away. So I'm really interested to see how the Rays adjust to that, because a lot of their strategy was dictated by those things getting taken away.
Yep.
Okay, so let's take a minute for station identification. You are watching us on the South Florida Tribune YouTube station. Please subscribe to us on YouTube at South Florida Tribune. You can find us on our website, southfloridatribune.com. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, any place you get your podcast. Thank you very much. And now let's go to one more topic. Let's talk about the New York Mets have the top payroll, and it's their highest payroll in 33 years. As of the last full month of the season, they're going to come in with a $273.9 million payroll compared to the next highest. Can you guys guess who the next highest would be?
Dodgers
at 267.2, followed by
Yankees
at 254.4 million. So what do you guys, so Eric, you go start with us. What do you think about the New York Mets and their payroll?
It's not the first time I've seen them spend money. It really isn't. I mean, that Mets, this is New York. You have to spend money. This is New York. You do not tank in New York. Otherwise, you are going to be the subject of you're going to be the subject of a lot of people's criticism, and New York criticism is not friendly. This is not Miami where, they'll mention it, whatever. They'll have a conversation about it maybe, but no, you will hear it day in and day out, up and down the streets of Manhattan. You have to spend money. I mean, it's not the first time they decided to go overboard with payroll. We saw them do that in '93 when they had Bobby Bonilla, and of course Bernard Madoff was the Mets financial advisor. And we've seen them do this before. I mean, I'm not too surprised because Cohen said, "I want to spend money and I want to win," which he's a man of his word. He wants to spend money and he wants to win. Of course he did. And obviously they obviously have it saddled into pitching with DeGrom and also Max Scherzer, and obviously they have it with some other guys out in the field, and sooner or later they're gonna have to pay Pete Alonso. So not too surprising there. I mean, Cohen said he wants to spend, so here we are.
So Rick, what do you think?
Yeah, not a surprise. You have an owner that wants to spend money, and he's a multi-billionaire. He's one of the richest owners in all of baseball. He came in there with a big open wallet, and unlike Artie Moreno, Cohen's doing a good job. He did a fantastic bringing Buck Showalter back, who to me is the runaway NL Manager of the Year. The Mets look good. They got into a little slump, but they're going to the playoffs. They're spending money. And, and Yankee fans, you better get Aaron Judge to sign and pay him his $50 million a year because, hey, Cohen wants to spend that money. And I think he would love to pry Aaron Judge away and make him go to the other New York team. So it'll be very, very interesting what they do in the offseason. It'll be very interesting what they do in the playoffs. And I hope to see, like I always talk about Dusty Baker, I love to see Buck Showalter win a World Series. He got gypped in '94 with a strike because clearly the Expos and the Yankees were two of the best teams at that time. I love to see him win a World Series. I love to see I just remember the '86 World Series, one of my favorite World Series of all time. Heartbreaking when the Angels were one strike away, and then the Red Sox were one strike away, and the Mets did that amazing comeback and won it. To me, one of my favorite World Series. Love to see the Mets back in it, and they came close, with Piazza, but Yankees were just too tough. Love to see the Mets in the World Series, and I think this is a great shot, great opportunity, and this is the best they've looked in a long, long time.
I mean, well, first off, they weren't even close. They weren't even close in 2000. They were not even close. Four games to one. That is not close.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, they haven't won it, and they've made the playoffs sporadically here and there. But they make it when we don't expect them to make it. But they obviously they have a good opportunity here. I mean, obviously Showalter, I'm not sure if he would have had it in '94. I'm really not sure because he had an opportunity to do it in '95 and didn't get it done. But I'm not sure if he would have. I think that team was much younger.
Yeah.
And they probably would have made some noise. It probably would have. I'm not sure if it would have ended as dramatically as it did against the Mariners. But I don't think they would have. I don't think they would have made it because there were a lot of good teams in there, especially the Expos at that point. But I think I think he kind of got gypped in Arizona because he kind of laid the foundation for that team, and Bob Brenly kind of took that over.
Yeah.
And Bob Brenly took that over and eventually led them to a World Series. I mean, but we'll see though. Buck's kind of stubborn. Okay. Buck can be kind of stubborn. I mean, the guy gets pretty set in his ways. I mean, we saw it happen in several places. We saw it happen in New York. That was part of the reason Steinbrenner let him go because he wanted to bring the kids up, and Buck didn't want to. And obviously Arizona, he had his own problems there. Despite laying the foundation, Arizona wanted to go with Bob Brenly because again, Buck was just set in his way at that point. Baltimore, that was not fair.
No, that was Peter Angelos, and he was making a mess of it.
And Texas,
and
the Rangers, nobody had won with the Rangers up until that point until Ron Washington came there. So so obviously they had some teams. So but I think this is the best team he's had to win a World Series with. I think it's better than any of his mid '90s Yankees teams. Yeah. And I think it's better than that Arizona team that was knocking on the door in the playoffs, and obviously the Rangers because nobody was winning with the Rangers at that point. Nope. And so I think this is Buck's best chance to get back to the World Series. I know that people talk about his Oriole teams of 2012, which you do, but keep in mind they weren't that team wasn't very experienced at that point, and they obviously you had a young Manny Machado. I mean Chris Davis, was what he always was a strikeout or home run guy, although he was hitting more home runs than he was striking out. So, it's his best chance to win. I think this is his best opportunity to win. Otherwise, I don't know odds are, I mean, the Mets are going to bring him back next year considering what he's done for him this year.
Absolutely.
But do we know what's in store for those do we know what's in store in the offseason? No. But I'd be very curious to see whether or not, he's able to win because, he's had, this is the best team he's had ever, I think.
I agree. Going back to the salary, Mets pitcher Matt Scherzer at a big league high $43.3 million makes roughly $5 million less than Oakland's entire team. Yeah. And combined with teammates Jacob deGrom and Francisco Lindor for about $103 million, they make more than 8 of the 30 clubs in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. I mean, the A's have been just a complete mess. I mean, that movie Moneyball, Moneyball and analytics are not going to win you a World Series. I don't care if they won 20 games in a row. It's never, ever, ever, ever going to win you a championship. It's just not going to do it. The A's just need to move on, move to Las Vegas because it's inevitable. The fans know they're doing things up in the stands now. Instead of watching the game, they're doing other forms of entertainment we're not going to get into, but it's just been a mess there. The fans have given up and it's been going around for 20 years. And it's just time for them to move to Las Vegas. And Manfred wants a team in Las Vegas. Just much more money being made there. And sad to see Oakland lose another team, but I mean, it's inevitable. And, it's just, it's really, really embarrassing for the A's when you have minor league baseball teams averaging more than your MLB team. That's sad. And so get used to being the Las Vegas Athletics because that's what's going to happen. But Moneyball and analytics will never, ever, ever win you a championship. It's not going to happen. You might be somewhat competitive, but you're never going to win a World Series. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, the only thing it proved was, it made a great book. I mean, no doubt. Yeah. It made a great book. I mean, it proved Brad Pitt was a great actor.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't even make it out of the ALDS.
No, nope.
They didn't. And matter of fact, the year before they went to the ALCS.
Mm-hmm.
So it really didn't prove anything. Yeah, it proved that they weren't going to finish in last, which and they could get back to the playoffs, which they did. But it didn't prove that they could. It didn't prove them to be what they were the year before, which they were. Obviously, they had more wins, but did they go back to where they didn't go back to the ALCS? and they didn't for the longest time up until 2006, because every year was either because 2006 was a great team, no doubt, but every year they haven't really gotten out of the AL. They haven't gotten out of the ALDS, despite having great pitchers like Mulder, Hudson, and so on. But Moneyball hasn't won anybody a World Series ring. The Red Sox can say they use those strategies all they want, but I beg to differ, because Dave Robert, because they had some great pitching too with Schilling and Pedro Martinez, and they obviously had Keith Falk closing, and they had a lot of other great relief pitchers on that team. But you still have to make the common sense moves. Analytics are not common sense. You gotta, granted, you have to do both, which I get matchups, pitcher versus this guy owns him, or, he's good on this pitch or whatever. I get that, and that stuff's very useful. The rest of it, it's just a load of junk. Nobody's won the World Series because of analytics. It cost the Rays a World Series.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if the Dodgers, I'm not sure if they kept Snell in, whether the Dodgers would have still won or not, because we'll never really know. But Snell was cruising at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you take him out when he gets into trouble and he starts getting laced.
Tampa would have won the World Series if they kept Snell. And I'm a Dodger fan. Okay. Even I admit that. He was red hot. You don't take him out, and it just doesn't happen. It's just sad to see so many teams that are such, I'm sure the Pirates are on that list, and the Royals, definitely the A's. Just need to get better ownership, and to me, and I'm going to keep reiterating this, it ain't going to happen. Major League Baseball, needs a salary cap. They just do. They just need to make these teams more competitive. Right now, it's, you got Goliath with the Dodgers and the Yankees, and then you got the Davids and the Pirates and Royals, and of course the A's, and it's just not fair. It's just not, it's like I said, you're not going to see the A's going to the World Series or anything else. I mean, even the Marlins are there, so they just need to get better ownership. They need to spend money, and we need a salary cap in Major League Baseball. And I think if you make it more competitive, it'll draw more fans.
I think number one, the Royals got a World Series ring. Okay, we're acting like they didn't, and they also went to another World Series the year prior. And they were doing well, except against Madison Bumgarner, who had them all figured out. The Royals won themselves a ring. It is not the first time. It's the small market teams winning a World Series is not unheard of. And obviously the Cardinals are not a very big market team. They're probably more toward the middle. I wouldn't call them super small, but I wouldn't call them super large either. They probably are about middle of the pack. But they somehow figure out ways to win. And as far as the salary cap goes, the big market teams are not going to allow it.
Of course not. They'll lose money.
I know. They're not going to do it. The players won't do it.
Of course not.
Including on the small market teams. The small market players won't allow it. The agents of those players, particularly Scott Boras, will not allow it.
Of course not.
So, obviously, so it's pretty much now you pretty much have to figure out how you're going to get this done, because there are plenty of ways to get it done. I mean, granted, the Pirates seem like they have the Pirates at least are finally starting to head in a positive direction. They have O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds, keep Brian Hayes if he can just get it back together, which he hasn't. But they got some bats in that lineup, and I think they're starting to put something together there where I think we could see them in about 2 or 3 years contending again.
So, as we're going to wind this program down, I'm going to throw a curveball to you guys.
Ooh.
What team do you think will be a surprise in the playoffs? And not necessarily obviously, your Yankees, are going to be in there. Mm-hmm. But what team do you think will make an interesting run in the playoffs?
You go first, Eric.
Oh, boy. Another interesting run, the playoffs?
Yeah.
I really think the Blue Jays can make some noise. They got a great offense. They have a good closer in Jordan Romano. I mean, I get they're a division rival, but they have a great offense. I mean, starting pitching is so, but when it's on, it's on. But if their pitching can just be consistent, and obviously their bats we know can do damage. I think the Blue Jays can really make things interesting for anybody.
Okay, Rick, you?
Yeah, I think the Blue Jays, if they can be consistent and they can be all on red hot, and Bo Bichette's playing really, really good, and we already know about Vlad Guerrero Jr. I think they can make some noise, So do I think they're going to go to a World Series and shock everybody? No, but I think they could cause some problems in the playoffs. So I like the Blue Jays, so we'll see what happens.
My dark horse, I think. Let me see. I think my dark. I think I'm gonna go with the Cardinals. I think they can really make some noise. I don't. They're not the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Mets that we're all thinking are gonna do really well. I think the Cardinals are gonna surprise some people.
That will surprise me because they're a smart organization. Like I said, like Eric said, they're like a middle class, organization, but they're so smart. They got Goldschmidt, how they got him, pried him away and really didn't get rid of anyone is amazing what they do. I love the Cardinals. I just remember the old days of Ozzie Smith and Jack Clark and Vince Coleman and Whitey Herzog, and they've always been a great, smart organization. I would not be shocked if they go pretty deep into the playoffs because they always know how to win, whether they have a really great team or an okay team. They seem to always figure it out in the playoffs. So I would be concerned with the Cardinals because they know how to win.
Well, with that, guys, I think we've had a really great show. The one last thing I want to have a shout out to is the Milwaukee Milkmen. They're in the Wolf Cup Finals. They are tied 1-1. It's a 5-game series, so they have 3 more games. Hopefully, they can do it.
I will say this about the Cardinals: they've done it before. Remember 2006? They go ahead and absolutely dismantle a young Justin Verlander and a Jim Leyland-led Detroit Tigers team that very well could have won the World Series, but they but little David Eckenstein and his hustle ultimately propelled that team to that win. So they've done it before. I mean, obviously you have big bats like Arenado and Goldschmidt, and obviously they got some solid contact hitters in that lineup, and they actually have a closer now, which is good.
And they got veterans like Wainwright and Molina there that can give them that experience. They're a dangerous team. They really are.
Yes, they are, and they're going to, and I think they're going to. And I really believe that they are going to. I think they give them a chance, and their bullpen isn't as bad as people made it out to be.
And is Pujols going to get? How close is he going to get? Is he going to get his number?
Oh, he will.
Absolutely. I think he'll end up with like 700 and like 506, and he's done. He already said, "This is my last year. I don't care if I have 699 home runs. I'm done. It's been great." And I'm glad he came back to St. Louis. I never wanted him to leave St. Louis, even though he went to the Angels. It's just the American and National League is so different. And then he got hurt a lot, and now he looks like he's rejuvenated right now. And he's happy, he's excited, and I'm happy back with the Cardinals. And him and Cabrera, 2 of the greatest right-handed hitters I've seen in my generation.
I mean, why not? I mean, for him to go do it in St. Louis, why not one last dance with Wainwright and Molina and Pujols? Why not one last dance?
Why not? Well, with that, guys, this has been a great broadcast. I appreciate everything. Let's close it out by telling everybody how they can get a hold of you. So, Rick, why don't you go first?
You can find me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there where hopefully you can sign. We'd love to have your signature on there. We're trying to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB, Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. I'm on Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on LinkedIn under Rick Curdy. And if you have any comments or questions, you can email me at cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com if you want to get involved, and love to hear your feedback.
And Eric.
You can find me on Twitter at Sports Team News, where I talk all things sports.
Awesome. For Scott Morganroth, who normally holds us, Motor City Madmouth, he is Tribune South is the Twitter feed. You can find our broadcast on, please subscribe to YouTube, South Florida Tribune. You can hear our podcast on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com if you have any comments, questions, topics you might want us to talk about. Please email us. Let us know. Or on Facebook, we have a South Florida Tribune page. Let us know what you think. We hope you enjoyed this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Until the next time, enjoy baseball. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.